Now we are.
Now I thought I didn't see it. But if you got any questions on those bait hives and how to set them up, we can run through a little bit of that. And because we have so many people, we'll probably have to limit to a minute to 3 minutes, and that way we can get our point across. Does anybody got any questions on those things? I know I got several emails. They was confused about drawn comb versus just plain starter strips.
I don't see any hands yet.
They got all the answers tonight. I'll be. Oh, Israel got some.
Here they go. Israel, go ahead.
Yeah, so I got a question about making foundation for the bees out of beeswax. So my question is when you're heating that up, how are you heating that wax up, and what temperature are you heating that up to?
Well, I have a dipping tank, which a student quite a few years ago actually built it and donated it to me. But I had another student after that was done. You can basically go to Goodwill or any of your thrift shops, and you can pick up a used roaster, which has everything there. It's got the thermostat, everything's set. The only disadvantage is most of them have like an oval type of opening on them. You just have to cut your board oval and it fits right down in there. And if you double dip it, it's thick enough that when it goes to those embossers, it'll stretch it out. You don't have to have it perfectly square on the ends. In fact, Daydent took their plastic stuff a few years back, and they actually cut communication holes in it, those round circles they put in there. They found out that solid plastic did not have good communication from one side to the other.
Yeah, okay. So
how much students popping in tonight?
So I got these huge blocks of beeswax. I'm taking that block and just placing it directly in there with nothing else and melting it down. You
need water in your cooker or your heating unit.
Okay, so I need to put a certain amount of water in there. So can you hand me that? So these are the blocks that I got. These this one's like 11 pounds or whatever. Okay. So how much water would I put, or do I need to cut that block down, or how much water do I need to put in with like that much?
If you're gonna use a roaster, if you don't want to get a used one, Walmart's got a large commercial size one. I think the standard house one is around $40 new. The bigger one, the largest one, I think is about $62. I would run at least 2 inches of water in the bottom of that. Now you could probably do it in a large crock pot, but I don't know how you would dip. The roasters, by adapting a square dipping board, you could get by with them.
Right, and so okay. Because I have your video series I bought, and I've seen that, but so I wanted to talk a little bit. I haven't really got anything as far as like a specific temperature. Does anybody know like what I wouldn't want to be over or where I want to be?
You want to stay under 192.
Under 192.
178 usually rolls out fairly good. I mean, you might be up north or in a different type areas or elevations, might have a few degrees one way or the other. I don't know if Joe May's got a thermostat on his, but he bought a set of rollers from me. We run about 178, 175, usually runs pretty good. If you run it up to about 180, 182, you can run cut comb, which is good for eating. It's a lot thinner. And when we're doing the dip on the deep boards, I run usually 4 to 6 sheets to the pound. And if you got 11 pounds there, if you're running for deep for brood boxes, you'll probably end up going about 65 sheets there. You want to go for your medium supers, probably run 92 to 99.
Per one of those blocks?
For the 11 pounds that you showed me there, and it looks fairly clean, so you probably don't have more than a 3% waste as far as propolis. and then you could take that and recycle it in your first cook again when you cooking up your old stuff.
Right on. Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for the information. That's what I was looking for.
Okay. Joseph Millwood, go ahead.
Hey, Don.
Hey,
I'm about to, probably this coming week, I'm going to be doing splits. And join the bee club. My mentor is going to show me the way he does the splits, but what he's talking about doing is pulling the frame out, finding the egg or larva, and starting below that cell, so the bees will draw out a queen cell there, and then put that in the nuke to make the split. How long would you expect something like that to take before you could split it again? I've been watching your videos and seen your time frame, but with me not having a queen cell ready to go into it, how long would I expect to have to wait to split that again?
basically, you're covering something that I went over with a group today. I discussed that as we can make two ways of making bees. The way to make money in the backyard beekeeping method, and what you're talking about is the backyard beekeeping method. I mean, you could take a hive, blindfold, go in there, split the hive halfway, and it got a 50-50 chance you're going to come up with a queen. The biggest drawback is the hive that has the most bees in it, if they're drawing the cells, you run the risk of losing a lot of bees. And then if you're not worried about losing bees, the second thing you need to think about is when you take the queen and move her from one to the other, you lost 1 whole month to 6 weeks, because they're going to have to make a queen cell. Your production is going to drop. Your pollen intake is going to go way down. They're going to focus on making a queen cell. The smartest thing to make money is to just crowd them, leave them in a single story, put the sugar to them. Bees only do 2 things: multiply, store honey. And the production is going to keep going steady or go up when they get crowded. But they're going to make good queen cells. At that point, you cut them. A ripe queen cell and put it in there with 1 frame of honey and shake a half a frame or maybe even a whole frame of bees. Right now, I would use a whole frame of bees, because until Easter, you run a big risk of getting chill brood. Now, if you get chill brood, you lose 1 queen cell, and the old bees fly back to the hive, and only the nurse bees is at risk. If you do it the way your mentor says to do it, you run the risk of losing a frame to 2 frames of brood. So that's why I say backyard beekeeping is totally different than making money at it. You can't afford to lose that time.
So I've got my hive that I've had for years. It's in a 10 frame double deep.
Mm-hmm.
So you would recommend that I would break that into nukes at this point, or how would you recommend proceeding with that to crowd them?
What do you want to do? You want to make a bunch of numbers, or you want to make honey?
A bunch of numbers.
All right. The best thing to do is leave them alone. Where you live?
North Carolina.
Leave them just like they are and put the feed to them with a hive top feeder. As soon as they get crowded, they're going to make cells. A double deep 10 frame, minimum 15 splits, and mostly you get a 90% or 99% take. I mean, that's the easiest way. That's the way to make money. And then see, people don't tell you when you do these walk-away splits, I mean, they're no-brainers. They do work, but when that swarm goes out there, if you did a 10 frame split, you run anywhere from 1 to 3, maybe even 4 pounds of bees. There's less than a 50-50 chance that you could come back and you lost all them bees. If you do it the way I try to explain, that same box, you could make 50 mini nukes. And if you lost 50%, you're 25 ahead.
Right.
You have to play numbers in your favor, not backyard beekeeping.
Right. All right. Cool deal. I appreciate it.
Okay, we got Paul next. Go ahead, Paul.
Don, what are the chances of catching a swarm if there's no nearby hives around?
Well, the chance to get hit by lightning is about the same, but you never know. I mean, The best thing to do right now, we are about 5 weeks, 6 weeks ahead of what we're supposed to be. Put the swarm traps up. I went over that with the meeting we had today. Don't use drawed comb. Use starter strips. Get the worst frames you own, the oldest ones, the ones you don't think you can sell. Put a starter strip in it. Set it in your bait box. Mount them on the trees. Put a Q-tip, dip it into your lemongrass oil, put a ring around in the center of that nuke box and just drop that Q-tip in there. It could sit out in the woods for 5 years. The most you're going to get is a spider in there. You know, if you put cut comb, if you don't get your swarm within 20 days, you're going to get ate up with wax moth. That's the easiest way to do it. Lita
All right,
must
thanks.
have a question.
Is that it, Paul?
That's it.
Okay. Jamie, go ahead.
Hey, Don, a couple
Hey.
weeks ago, I got your video series there. A lot of interesting information. Appreciate that. I had a question that kind of reflected off what Israel was talking about. I noticed that you had 3 or 4 videos that talking about rendering wax by pouring water over it. How many times do you do that before you're satisfied for it being clear enough to roll it out and emboss it?
Well, I mean, clear enough to do what with? To make foundation or to sell as cosmetic grade? What was your end result you want? To make
Well, I
foundation?
do a little bit of both. I like to make herbal salves and things like that. I was just curious how many times you was taking it through that process before.
If you take old dirty combs,
Excuse me?
if you take the old dirty combs, your brood combs, maybe 4 or 5 years old, 8 years old, they're dark. They're a dark chocolate, coffee color, even old black looking. You can run them through a strainer. Bring your water up to a boil. Don't boil it more than about 3 minutes because you want to just bring the wax to a boiling point. If you cook it, you caramelize it. You degrade your wax. Pour it through a strainer and take a hive tool and press it out. You just keep flipping it over and pressing it and just let it, you dump. I use a 20-quart buck or 20-quart kettle, and I fill it about 3 inches from the top. So when I pour that into a 5-gallon bucket, I'm going to get about 3 or 4 inches from the top. And if you put 4 frames in there or 5 frames, you should get about an inch of nice wax. It could be a yellow or it could be a dark yellow to even a brownish shade. That's the first batch. After you get 4 or 5 or even 6 of those little blocks, you scrape them a little bit off on the bottom and then you put clean water in that 20-quart kettle. You only use about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and then you put those pieces in one at a time, and then you just take a strainer. You don't have to press no more. Just pour it through a strainer because you're always going to get a little bit of debris there, and just let it drain. That's the second process. That gets it pretty clean. You could run foundation with it. But if you want to get high dollar, save all your capping wax and set it in a bucket with like rabbit wire over it. And don't put no more than 2 to 3 inches of cappings in a bucket at a time. If you put too much, the bees get too wet and they can't get out. They'll go through that bucket and they'll get all that honey off of it. And as they come through that hardware cloth, it dislodges little particles of wax. It keeps the bumblebees and the hornets out of there. And at that point, you just put that in water. Now you've got cosmetic grade wax. You should be able to get $20 to $25 a pound for that.
Okay. So you're only going a couple times, and then once you finally get your big cake, I noticed you was scraping the number 2 propolis off the bottom and then rendering that back.
Well, when I run the second batch, I combine maybe a half a dozen of the circles from the first batch. From that point, when I get a block there, usually that block is between 6 and 8.5 pounds. Then it goes into my melter, which has got about 12 inches of water, and I float about 1 inch to maybe 2 inches at the maximum of just hot wax. That's my dipping tank. That's basically your third water bath. So the foundation comes out fairly clean.
Okay.
And if you
I've never done it before. I just let it run off the uncapper and then down into the melter, and then from there I'd run it into a cake and turn it in pound for pound for foundation. I never tried to melt it down myself, so it's something new I'm going to try.
If
But,
you're
I never
doing that, if you do that yourself and you're not using chemical, you're throwing a lot of money away. Because if you take that and turn it in, you stand there and you hand them nice clean wax, it's probably worth $20, $25 a pound, and you're getting some crap they call foundation with chemical in it. It probably ain't worth $3 a pound.
Hey, isn't that something? Well, I know I'm not the only one doing it, or has done it before. So it's a very good point. Very good point you're making.
If you
Thanks.
want
That was all I had. Just simple.
If you want to keep your hive clean and keep it chemical free, get a better price for your product, recycle your own wax.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sean, go ahead.
Hey Don, how's it going?
Hey,
Hey, on the topic of wax foundation, roughly how thick do you do your sheets?
well, it depends if you got plenty of wax. I mean, if you got enough wax, you can run it 4 sheets or even 5 sheets to the pound, and it feels just like plastic. I took some to the meeting today, and people thought it was plastic. That's how thick it is. The embossing is real deep on it. It's not quite thick as that Purco stuff that they sell that's drawn out pretty good, but it stands up pretty good. I mean, you get a good honey flow. It's got the backbone, and you got to realize if you make it thin or if you make it thick, the bees will chew it down and they'll real work that wax. So they make it where they want it. But it's nice to have a good stiff piece of foundation in, especially if you're running starter strips. Like we run a lot of starter strips.
Okay. When you do your painting on your hive boxes, since you've had some out there that are probably as old as I am or close to, that's not meant to be an insult. How many coats of paint do you typically run, or do you just paint them every couple of years? Or
Whenever I get students, we do painting. I mean, I have boxes out there. We brought some in from one of our bee yards now that's been in the yard 2 years. They've never had a drop of paint on them. And then there was some come from another yard that we needed the boxes, and the hive boxes went out to the bee yard and no handles. And we brought some from a different yard that it got painted, and then for some reason last summer we had time and we run handles in it after it was painted, so the handles never got painted. You have to do what is making money.
Okay.
Painting is a luxury. So now's when the time you paint your box to make them look pretty.
Okay. So I need to get students and more paint?
Well, you know how Tom Sawyer made his money.
Outstanding. Thanks, Don.
All right, Patricia, go ahead.
Yeah, hello.
Oh,
My question was, what are the benefits to making foundation sheets as opposed to letting the bees draw their own foundation?
well, that's a very good point. If you're running 4 sheets to the pound, it feels just like plastic. If you put that in a whole sheet in a frame, it's called the window of opportunity. You drop that in the center of your hive between frames that's already drawn out. That queen will lay into that embossing, and she can lay from that top bar to the bottom. Whereas a starter strip or no foundation or foundationless, she got to sit there and twiddle her thumbs until they get enough wax drawn down for her to working. It actually will put you ahead a day to 4 days ahead.
Okay.
Because the cells will draw out. She can lay that egg in just the embossing, and they'll draw the comb out around the cell as they're progressing.
Okay.
It's just little tricks. I mean, it's wonderful to do foundationless or not to use comb, but if you want to make money, you've got to do what it takes to get yourself out there and get your numbers up quick as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Derek's got a sheet of foundation. Somebody been busy.
Okay, Joe May, go ahead.
Yeah, Don, we pull a queen out of a mini nuke. I'm going to sell her. When you put I'm going to put a queen cell right back in there. Should I shake nurse bees on top of that hive again, or?
It depends on how long that mini nuke has been set up. If you got at least a visual cup to a half a cup of bees in there after Easter, you're good to go. Before Easter, I would add some bees. Anything you do before Easter, you're going to run that risk. We're going to get a cold spell in here yet.
Well, you can just shake them on top of the box, can't you? They'll find their way in there, won't they?
I think I would put them in a bucket and dip them out with a cup and just drop them directly in there, because at this time of the year, your nurse bees are not well oriented, and it doesn't take much to chill them just a little bit. If they get a little on the chilly side, they get lethargic and they don't want to climb in the box like they should. On a warm day, they'll march right on in there, and that's the way I do it on warm days. I shake them in front of the box and I let the field bees go back so I don't lose my production on that hive I shook from.
Yeah. Of course, after they've been established the second round, they all had enough eggs laid in there to just keep pulling them out and keep the process going, right?
Right. Usually, when that process, once you have warm enough weather, you actually have to pull a frame or two out that's drawed and put it into new nukes to start new ones, and just keep feeding in starter strips.
That's what I'm hoping for.
The little ones will get honeybound, or they'll get overpopulated real fast.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Leah, go ahead.
Hey, Don.
Hey.
I've been binge watching your videos the last couple of weeks to make sure I get them all watched before I get my bees. You've mentioned your primary oils that you have ordered are tea tree oil, lemongrass, spearmint, and wintergreen. Are there any other oils when I place my order that I ought to be looking at? I know in the past you talked about thyme and about a couple of other oils. What would you recommend? I'm going to be getting a couple of packages from you in April.
You could probably get lavender is good oil to put in there. There's probably several other ones. You got the main ones right there, unless you're going to start doing more organic stuff, and then you can lay off so much of the oils.
Okay.
I'll mention too that I've already contacted Lorana Oils, and they sent me a form. I can forward it to you. If you are a beekeeper, you can use. She said online it's hard. You have to have this form filled out, and they'll give you a 20% discount. See, before, I've just been telling people, when you call them up, just tell them, I sent you, you're a beekeeper, they'll give you a discount. But I'm trying to work a deal with my students and stuff for promoting their company since 1990, that they'll give me some promo freebies of oils, or give me a better discount, because I promote their product pretty good.
Okay. And then I have a second question for you. I wear glasses, and I'm not really wanting to wear a veil or a suit. I did that with my mentor, and it was just, in South Carolina, it's just too hot.
Mm-hmm.
So do I need to wear contacts when I'm working the bees, or what do I need to do, or do I need to worry about bees in my glasses?
If you are wearing glasses because you can't see fine detail, the best thing to do would you get a pair of goggles to put over there. You don't want the bees getting between you and your glasses, because if it bounce back and forth a few times, they'll sting you in the eye. But if you wear those carpenter's goggles, they're vented out, your eyes won't sweat, and it'll keep the bees away from your eyes.
Okay. And one last question. You were talking about foundation. I'm wanting to make my own, but I don't have the money for a press yet.
Mm-hmm.
So what should I do there to make sure that I've got control over the wax and put it in the hives?
You can either go foundationless, or you could buy a small block of good beeswax, and you could turn that wedge sideways, rub it with wax. It's a little longer process. Or if you're coming up here and picking your packages up, mention that you need some, and I could sell you 10, 15 sheets. We take a deep and we cut it into 6 pieces. Now, I've got some students that are doing about 8 pieces to a deep. So you don't need much.
I guess I'm asking, like, going forward, when I save my own wax and melt it down in a turkey roaster,
Mm-hmm.
can I dip it in my board and just put a plain starter strip that doesn't have any embossing on there?
You can do that. I've done a video on that. What I would do is get your wax up to a little bit higher temperature, probably around 188 degrees, and then just keep your board soaked in water. And when you dip it in there, just leave it in about 4 seconds, 5 seconds, dip it in the water, and the sheet will fall right off. And while it's still got some heat to it, lay it on a flat surface, some masonite or something where it's good and flat. Cut you a template. If you want deeps, I'd cut a template out of plywood or paneling, or and just put a handle on it and just take a pizza cutter and trim it.
Okay.
Stay away from the box knife with cutting foundation. You cut the tips of your finger.
Okay, thanks, Don.
Okay, Lee Johnson, go ahead.
Hey, I got a couple of questions.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, okay. The first one, I'm in Northwest Alabama, and we've seen heard of some swarms south of us, and my mentor's wanting to get swarm traps out real quick, but we're not really seeing any drones. We've been to 3 different bee yards, and very few drones in the bottom corner. Nothing's hatched out yet. Until we really start seeing drones, we're not going to see any swarms, correct?
Nope, you'll see them.
Really? Before drones? Okay.
Well, what you're looking at is what you got. There's already had about 7 or 8 people call me from Chatsworth, Georgia, Rome, all the way up. I think it was up in Fairview. One called me. There's some in northern Alabama right now. There's bees in trees, and there's bees down south. You know, it's in houses or sheds, and they're swarming. Believe me. What you see is what's in your beehive, so you don't know what's in the trees and what other people's getting.
Okay.
And then there's people that are running right now, because we was talking about that today. They are running double deeps with 2 supers of honey on there, and they wondered why all their bees is gone. They were so strong, instead of putting them in singles, their hive swarmed. One guy said he lost like 2 supers of honey. He said it was there one day, and 2 days later it was gone. He said most of his bees is gone.
Okay. A second one was you talked about sugar water last week being 3 to 1, not running Kool-Aid. What's your idea on 3 to 1? You're talking 3 gallons of sugar to 1 gallon of water, or 3 pounds of sugar to 1 gallon of water?
We got a barrel we have in the basement, and actually that's 3 days ago, Stephen put a 55-gallon barrel into that barrel. And with a full barrel of sugar, with that barrel there, it's pretty thick. It's not quite like Carol syrup, but it's a little bit, probably a little bit better than peach syrup.
How much water do you think you put in there?
That 55-gallon barrel, he probably put 4 gallons, 4.5 gallons maybe in it.
Okay. All right. I can get a ratio from that. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, g'day, Don. Mate, getting back to the foundation again. I've saved up a fair amount of wax over the last couple of years, and I can't afford a press. I think we've all got that problem. But which do the bees prefer to draw? Do they draw a thinner foundation or a thicker foundation? I'm going to make a whole pile this coming winter, but I'm not sure what actual thickness to make the comb best for the bees to draw.
Bees, they go into a tree or they go into a house, they draw what they want. So basically all the foundation is doing is just giving them a starting point. And if you've got a large cavity that they're going into, it keeps the comb straight. That's the number one thing. We run a little bit thicker because sometimes the honey flow is so heavy, if you make it too thin and it's warm outside, it has a tendency to top 2 inches start to stretch down a little bit. And if it stretches, what you're going to end up getting is drone comb there.
Yeah, I've had that problem already with the stretching. It gets a bit warm down here.
Yeah. Just make your foundation a little bit thicker, or why don't you just take a stick and turn it sideways and rub the wax on there? The bees will make that thing. They'll build it. They do it in a tree. They do it in a house. They don't stop at the bee supply house.
Yeah, right. All right. Thanks, mate.
Okay.
Israel, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to touch back on that Lemongrass Oils thing. Were you saying that you had something on your website that we could fill out, or?
We could put it there if you have it down.
I have it on my other computer. I've got 2 computers. This one here is my newer one. The other one there has got the form on it. It's an actual form. I can send it to Lizeruth, and he can post it on the web page, or maybe make a link to it where you can get it.
Yeah, we'll take care of that, Israel.
Okay, yeah, that would be great, because I've bought some oil, but I would like to buy, a massive quantity of oil, and that would be helpful to get a little savings if I could.
Well, don't buy a massive amount of oils until you know what direction you're going in. What are you wanting to try to do?
Well, so far all I've bought is the essential oils that that lady mentioned earlier, the 4 essential ones, but I've only bought them all in 1 ounce bottles. And so I was going to try to buy, you know, the bigger bottles once I was, you know, for feeding and stuff, right? But you know, I know for sure I'm not going to get too far with the 1 ounce bottles. And I bought all that at just the full price. And I think for the 4 different brands, it was like 40 or $50 or something. So, and I know if you buy it in the bigger bottles, it's, you know, more costly. So if you have something where we can get a savings, I'd love to see it.
Well, your 1 ounce, how many hives are you planning on running?
Well, as many as I can have. I've got a piece of property here that I want to try to at least, you know, maybe put 1,000 on. And then I've got another 80-acre piece of property that I'd like to probably put 1,000 on there too, you know, or so. So
well, your lemongrass oil, that 1 ounce bottle is going to carry you a long ways, because even on a 55-gallon barrel, we try to limit to about 5 drops of lemongrass oil. If you go too high on lemongrass oil when you're feeding, if there's no honey flow on, you're going to cause major robbing.
Right.
So, but if you're going to get that big, I buy my tea tree oil in gallons. I buy wintergreen in gallons, and spearmint I buy in gallons. Lemongrass oil up to around 1,000 hives. That 1 ounce bottle, as long as it's food grade, it'll be enough.
Right.
If you're going to get that big, you might want to go, you know, a 5-gallon container. I think a gallon's going to handle you pretty good.
Right. Yeah. And that's where I'm at right now. Like I bought your instructional videos and I've watched them and looked at them, and I know how much the 1 ounce, right, of the 3 other ones is only going to make about 55 gallons of feed. If you're using the formula that you have for the tablespoons, except for the lemongrass oil.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I've already equated it out, so I kind of know where I'm at, you know, at the beginning. So I know that's not going to last very long. So when you said there could be some savings there, I'm definitely interested in that.
I would definitely make contact on the phone, talk to their head representative. Michelle, I think, was the last lady I talked to. She had all my paperwork over there. And I'm sure you're buying in that quantity, she's going to give you at least 20%, and more than likely give you free shipping, and it's tax exempt.
Sweet. Okay, thank you for the information.
Okay. Joe Millwood, go ahead.
Don, back to that initial question. One thing I'm a little fussy on is how do you keep an eye on and know when to go into the hive to check for crowding, or how often would you do that?
Well, you don't need to open every single hive, and if you got a lot of hives, you got to look from the outside and kind of walk by. As far as honey stores and stuff, you can lift up the back of the hive, give you a general idea. You can walk down a row of hives and look at the front just for a second or two. If they're bringing pollen in, you know, you got your queen in there, she's laying. If you got 3 of them that's bringing pollen, 1 don't, then the one that's not, then you need to go in there and check it. But you should be going in your hives about every 14 days just to check for cells. This is at the highest swarming season of this year so far. We're working into more and more. We're actually 5 to 6 weeks ahead. So this is what people will be getting right now at the end of March, 1st of April. And if you're going to make bees, split them. Because if you're going to do honey, a lot of people want really strong hives. Those hives are working borderline all the time on swarming. Those things, you got to check them on a regular basis. And the more honey you stack, the longer it takes you to go through that hive.
I think that answered my question. It's about every 14 days.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Leah, go ahead.
Hey, Don, a minute ago when I asked about the oils, you said that kind of what I mentioned is what I needed unless I wanted to go more organic. And that is the direction that I think I want to go. I've ordered an oxalic acid vaporizer, and I've been snagging political signs that I've been seeing to do the little political with the boric acid.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other treatments that I need to be thinking about, or is there anything else you do?
If you're not seeing a lot of amount of beetles, I wouldn't worry too much about beetle traps. Build them with boric acid. I actually haven't used them in about 2.5, 3 years, and I've had several students over here that's been in my hives that went through the winter, and some of them might have 5 or 6 or maybe 10. Unless you start getting higher numbers than that, then I'll start putting your boric acid in there. As far as the boric acid, you want to cut political signs probably 3 inches high by 5, and you want to put about 10 to 15 in your hand and hold them like a deck of cards vertically, and then seal the tops with Crisco, and then turn them over, and then take a teaspoon of boric acid and dribble it in it. Don't fill them. If you fill them, you're not going to kill beetles.
Okay.
Harry's got a question. He's dancing all over there.
Go ahead, Harry.
Hey, Don.
Hey.
So I'm working out here building this stuff, getting ready to come see you here in a month.
Okay.
And I've got the 28 double deeps build and the 50 nukes built, and I've got 30 days left. So I'm going to make a plan. I've got to figure it out. You build this stuff in big lots. I figured that out. So I'm thinking about these boxes I'm going to bring back. Should I be building some of those, the nukes with the bottom boards on them?
Well, if you want to start treating with oxalic acid, you have to have a regular bottom board on them. You know,
I'm talking about when I go to sell my nukes, like you're going to sell yours to me, you're going to issue those boxes. Don't I have to have, unless I'm going to give away my boxes, I don't want to do those with the bottom boards. Don't I need to make some of those boxes too?
Well, you could, the ones you're transporting, use those to sell them. I charge $25 for them. They got a solid bottom on it. They're not that fancy a box. When you start building that bottom board, you got more time, more labor, more material, so you have to get more. So, I mean, you have to do.
My question, though, I got 30 days left. I need to maximize my effort here on what I build next. What do you reckon? Which way I should go, you reckon? I got 28 double deeps and 50 nukes. Just double that again?
You'll probably be okay for a while, because the boxes you take here, the 5-frame box you take from here, they're going to be in a standard bottom with the bottom board on. You should be good. You want to make numbers? Leave them in them boxes for 7 to 10 days, maybe a little longer. Then start going through there. Each of those boxes could produce you up to 50 queen cells. Whether you use them all or not, that's up to you. At the very least, you'll have at least 10 cells in each box when they get crowded. Okay, so if you're taking 25 boxes back and you've got 10 cells in there and you want to save 10 out of each box, that shows you how many boxes you're going to need.
Well, I'll probably need more than 50 then, huh?
Unless you sell them.
Well, you said I'm not going to have any problem selling them, though, right?
Ask anybody that's one of my students. I don't care where they are in the country. You'll sell them.
Okay. Looking forward to it, Don.
You got your web page up. You got your logos and all that done. Your web page.
Well, you know, I figured out my company name, and I got to call in to the web page guy. I haven't got that, but I'm working on that as we speak, Don. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Let's see who we got next. Nick, go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Don. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi there, Don. It's 1 a.m. here in UK. I've been watching a lot of your videos, and I've been very keen to get hold of you and talk to you. Right, Don, how to melt wax? I've been watching your videos, but it's better when you talk to me. Like, what's the best way to melt wax?
Well, in a small amounts. The larger amounts you make, the less actual wax you're going to get out of your old comb. And you have to do it in a double boiler. You can't melt wax on direct heat or it's going to ignite. It's like a candle. That's why you want to keep your temperature of your melting your wax or reprocessing to the minimum. If you overcook wax, you devalue it. It starts to caramelize, it gets dark.
So when you say double boiler, do I have to purchase this double boiler, or can I make one, or how does it work?
Well, if you take a large cooking kettle, it has several gallons, or in the UK, everything is in liters, you know, so yeah. You could take a large kettle with a I don't know what the ratio is, probably looking at around 10 to 15 liters. And then put your 5 or 6 frames in there and bring it up just to a boil. When everything is all melted, stir it up good and pour it through some screen wire. And just take your hive tool and press it. And just flip it over inside that strainer and keep pressing it until nothing comes out. That's the easiest way. And the water goes through that screen. As it starts to solidify, you'll have a nice clean cake of wax on top.
Okay, okay, that's one. And also, I wanted to ask you: can I actually mix a pollen with sugar syrup?
Yes,
pollen patties.
No, you don't want to take a pollen patty and put it in a beehive. If you look at the hive and they're bringing pollen in, it's usually sufficient. When you add more pollen or a pollen substitute, the first thing you got to ask yourself, how pure is it? Is it been eradicated or radiated? And does it have any chemical in it? Let the bees forage in your area. And I don't know in the UK if you have beetles over there, they will go in there.
Yeah, they have just, yeah, we have beetles. They have just started bringing in pollen like a couple of days ago, but not before. And I was wondering whether I can mix it with a sugar syrup.
We have I'm not getting paid for it, but the best thing out there is Mega Bee. It was designed by the USDA. It's made for basically to sit on an island and feed them Mega Bee and sugar, and bees thrive on it. It's got all the amino acids, trace minerals, everything a bee needs to thrive. What we do is we'll take a couple scoops of that and mix it in with our sugar water. And they'll pull it down fast. But if you put a pollen patty on there and they don't consume it in 24 to 48 hours, you run a high risk of attracting lots of beetles.
Okay. Okay. Also, I've been going through my hives and I can't find the queens on 2 of the hives, and I have found a lot of emergency queen cells. Does that mean the queen is dead?
Does the hive, is it full of bees?
Yeah.
Well, if it's full of bees,
not full. I mean, not. I'm running the 10 frame one, not the whole 10 frames. It's a Langstroth 10 frame one. Not all 10 frames are full, but it's pretty full.
Well, I'm not familiar with your area over there as far as your season and that, but it could be they're just getting ready to swarm. They're building up. They don't have enough room. It could be a simple thing like you're wearing gloves, you're using a veil, maybe you bumped her or you rolled her, and they're going to replace her. A queen cell is basically a queen cell. Some people want to call it an emergency cell or a swarm cell or a supersedure cell. That egg is an egg.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I have made some splits today, and I'm just experimenting. Actually, I have made 2 nuke boxes of with 1 frame. Would that be okay with a queen cell in it?
As long as you got some bees to keep the queen cell warm. Or
it's only 1 frame full of bees, and that's it.
And what about the queen cell? Is it against the side of the wall?
Yes.
It should be okay as long as it don't get really cold where you live.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Don. Thanks very much. That's for now. Thank you.
Tim, go ahead.
Sure. Hope I can explain this clear. Got myself in a little bit of a situation. Remember about 5 weeks ago, I lost one of my hives. So I checked my second hive and it was doing good. And I decided not to mess with it for a couple of weeks until it built up and got stronger. Well, day before yesterday, I went down and opened up the box and was going to just check them out. And I found out I didn't have my smoker with me. So I figured I'd at least check it out. Well, when I pulled the super off of the brood box, it actually, they had created bird comb and planted some drone cone in between. And when I pulled it off, I pulled a lot of drone cone away from the bottom box, and which exposed a lot of larvae, which I was kind of concerned because, and it was slam packed full of bees. So I started cleaning it up again. I'd already cleaned it up a couple of weeks earlier from any burr comb, but this time I went ahead and I cleaned up all the burr comb with the larvae and everything and got it off and got rid of it. And so I was going to try to go through the box, but with the weather turning the way it's turning, I was not able to. And it's going to be like probably another week before it gets up to 60 degrees for me to go through it. One thing I did see when I went through some of the frames were a lot of beetles, small hive beetles. So I've got beetle blasters in there, but I still had a lot of beetles. What I did was today I made up a bunch of the boric acid signs like you described, and I just opened up the box. Since it's only 51 degrees outside, all I did was cracked up the box and just slid the boric acid block in on top of each one of the boxes and shut it back down. And I got a feeling I may be getting ready to swarm, but I'm afraid to go in and try to do any maintenance until it warms up.
As long as you're fairly quick at it, it sounds like your box is getting overpopulated. As far as the burr comb and stuff, all that is your beach space is not right between the top bar and the above super. You got excessive space, so they're just building that. You can scrape that larvas off. It's not a big deal. What I would tell you to do is build you a couple queen castles. That way, as you open that hive up, give them a puff or two of smoke, start from the outside and take the outside frame of the box and set it on the outside. Take the next frame, glance at it real quick. If you've got a queen cell on it, don't even look for the queen. Drop it in the first section of your queen castle. Go to the next frame, look at the same, got a queen cell, drop it in the next section. You don't even have to find the queen. And then close the queen castle up and put the lid back in your hive. And you're going to be missing a few frames there. Wait at least 3 to 5 minutes. Open the lid up on your beehive. If they're noisy, you remove the queen. You can go look for or just let it go. And if your box is quiet at that time, slide all the frames together and put you some new frames with foundation on the outside to replace those 4. 2 on each side. That's your smartest bet. That's going to give them room. That's going to help get your beetles out of there. And when the temperature warms up, get another hive and change it out.
Okay.
At the very, very least you're going to have is 4 more queens.
Okay. Well, tomorrow it's supposed to, it's only going to get up to 46. Thursday it's supposed to get up to 55. So probably the best bet to do that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What about the hive beetles? Do you think those borax strip is going to bring it under control, or do I need to do something else?
At this time of the year, I wouldn't let that be your main concern. Swarming is going to be your biggest concern. When the temperature warms up, I would do a complete change out frame by frame, and any beetles that's in the corner, take a hive tool and smash them. Get your hive under control so it don't swarm on you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Joseph Millwood, go ahead.
Hey, Donna.
Hey.
I had a question I forgot to ask you earlier about your wax. You're talking about doing new wax. At what point, this is really old wax, would this be beneficial? Would it be quicker for them to build while I'm making splits to give them some of this? Or am I going to be better off to go ahead and do new foundation?
If it's not got a lot of wax moth in it, you can use it. But if you want to look at as far as your queen, you can judge your queen by that wax there. Hold the frame up lengthwise and point it at the camera. No, lay it flat and point it at the camera. Oh, all right, now look down those rows. Look at the camera and look down those rows. Are the rows running straight across? Are they real wavy, or they're not running?
They're pretty nice and straight. This back side is a little bit wavy, but it's not nearly as bad as quite a few I've seen.
The comb itself, as far as being wavy, I'm talking about the cells line the rows of cells. Look down the rows of cells. Are they straight or are they real wavy?
They're straight.
You've got a good queen then. Go ahead and use it.
Gotcha. All right, I appreciate it.
That's how I judge if it got a queen that's failing.
That's good to know. I'm blank.
All right. Bubba, go ahead.
Hi, Don.
Hey.
I was given some frames that are plastic, and the plastic is drawn out into the cone itself. What do you think about those, or should I just, I don't know what to do with those?
Well, I mean, if you want to start doing more natural beekeeping, I would work the plastic out. Rather than throw it away, you can scrape all the wax off of it and then pressure wash it, cut it in starter strips 2 inches wide, and reinstall it into frames that you've cleaned up. The first couple inches is going to be where the weakest part of that frame is, because at the honey band there on a hot day, that's where it's going to break. The plastic will reinforce it. At least you can sell it, get your hive up and running.
Well, these cone frames, everything's plastic. The cone is plastic. The frame's plastic. The cells are plastic.
Well, I would slowly work them out. If you can find somebody that wants bees, that ain't worried about really getting natural and stuff, they want bees just for their garden. If they want to buy a nuke, sell it off. I mean, I wouldn't say buy the stuff, then junk it out, unless you want to just go cold turkey and just restart it. I like everything wood and wax. I don't even like my wax wired, because vertical wires or even horizontal wires in a brood frame, the queen or the bees seem to put the best queen cells over the wire. They know you can't cut them, I guess. So it's hard to cut them unless you cut really big chunks out and then you use wire cutters, and it's a very slow, tedious process. That's why I did frames with fishing line. You could take a steak knife and you can cut a plug out, and they'll actually mend it back, and you'll never know you had a plug out of it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nick, go ahead.
Hi, Don. Another question I had is when I feed bees with sugar syrup, how much lemongrass can I put? Tea tree oil can I put in it?
On the lemongrass oil for just like a brood builder, is that what you're talking about, to build them up?
Yes.
If you're going to mix it, how much sugar are you mixing? 5 gallons at a time?
5 gallons, yes.
I wouldn't use no more than about 3 drops in that. If you put any more in that, you're going to run the risk of the bees robbing each other. That'll stimulate them enough they'll pull it down fast. But now on 5 gallons, you probably could use a teaspoon of wintergreen or a teaspoon of spearmint, and they're going to feed that to the brood, and it kind of retards buildup of your varroa mites.
Okay. And also, I was going to ask you, would you ship any of your stock in UK?
I don't have an export permit. I can't. It's hard for me to ship into Canada.
What about how long would the queen live in the queen cage if you just posted a queen, only the queen? If I purchased a queen from you?
We used to buy queens from Hawaii. They're shipped over here on planes. But, you know, you're talking about special permits. I don't want to get involved with more permits than I need to. I got an unlimited amount of people buying.
I wanted to have your stock, and the only way I can do that is by you sending me a queen.
I understand that, and if I could do it, I would do it, believe me.
Okay. So there is no way of you doing that.
You can fly over and visit me and take it back in your luggage.
I might do that one day. Okay, Don, thanks a lot. Cheers.
Right. John Roten, go ahead.
Yeah.
Hey, Don.
Hey.
You know, I made my splits Friday 2 weeks ago. I've had a lot of my queens actually hatched out. You're on. No good. Your picture's on here. I had my queens. Most of them hatched out yesterday, and I caught 5 of them. 2 of them I did not catch, and I've got 2 splits that still got a cell in.
Still there, John? We lose him. Think we lost him. We'll come back. Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, I was really interested in your way to tell that it was a failing queen with the wavy line of cells. Are there any other tips to know when the queen's failing? I've got some blue queens, and I'm just wondering how much longer they're going to be good, and how will I know when I should get rid of them?
Well, a lot of the techniques that I've learned is from trial and error. I mean, I've done a lot of self-teaching. Most of the stuff I talk at bee clubs and stuff that they're astounded I'm doing this kind of stuff because it's not in no books, and things that I mentioned that they never heard of. I've learned that, if you want to check how good your queen is, take a medium frame or even a shallow frame and drop it in the middle of a deep box and see what they're drawing. If they fill that whole frame up with worker cells, and then from the bottom board or the bottom bar down to your bottom board, and that's all worker cells, you've got a good queen. But from the bottom bar down to your bottom board, if that's all drones, you have a failing queen that's leaving in about 3 weeks. See, that nobody else has done studies on. I played around with it, and everything I do is I can back up with common sense.
Yeah, I heard you mention the drones before. The
Yeah.
wavy cells, that's the first time I'd heard that one tonight. Is there any others?
Well, that's one that I use, and because it's like, even if you don't have foundation, they go in a tree or they go in a house, and it's all good comb. A queen does not do her best until you go into your 2nd year. And the queens, a lot of times people are killing them and pulling them out before they need to. We talked about that at the meeting today, and there was people there that had degrees. This ain't what we were taught. And they would show a picture of a frame that was real spotty, and they say the queen needed to be replaced. When you think about it, all that was happening was they had a good queen, they had good bees in there, and they're very hygienic. The bees was getting mites, and it was pulling them out, so it resulted in a spotty pattern. And right away they said, it's no good.
Okay.
All right. Ro, go ahead.
Yes, can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, there's a guy locally that's got a bunch of frames and boxes for sale on Craigslist. We had a lot of flooding here about a year ago. That's when I lost all my equipment, and I know that's what happened with him. They were probably underwater about a month, but have been dry since then, but no bees. And he's wanting to sell them fairly cheaply, but I'm concerned about buying used equipment. If I were just to buy those frames from him and then clean them in bleach water like you did in that one video, would that be enough? Scraping them out real well and soaking them in bleach water to be sure that they were safe to use?
Are you going to put a package in these, or are you going to put a nuke in there?
Well, this would be a lot of frames. This is he's got about 1,000 boxes worth. He's
Were you going to set up a minimum of about 25, 30 boxes?
Yes.
With your own bees, or are you buying packages?
I'm getting packages from you.
Okay. Then what I would consider is you don't know the history of them, and you're putting that stuff on stuff that you don't have the history. And if you have something pop up on you, you just threw that much money away.
Yeah.
For what you lost two boxes of bees, you could buy 1,000 frames.
Okay.
So, when I say I bleach my frames, I know the history of the frame. I know it's either a dead out or froze out or something, no disease. So, that's what you have to consider. Cheap sometimes is good, but sometimes is it worth the risk?
Okay. All right.
Frames are too cheap. Equipment is just too cheap to throw your money away on used stuff.
Okay. That's all. That's kind of what I was thinking, but he keeps posting lower and lower prices, and I was,
That's why you can't get rid of them. He'll find somebody that doesn't know anything and thinks it's a good deal, and they'll buy it, and they'll be unhappy beekeepers.
okay. All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Harry, did you have a question?
No.
Okay, somebody said you're waving at me. All right, John, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me this time?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Don, Friday 2 weeks ago, I made some splits where my queens started hatching out. One of them actually hatched out 3 days ago, but most of them hatched out yesterday, midday. But I've got 2 of my splits that still have not, they've still got a queen cell each, but they haven't hatched. I don't know if something's wrong with them. Bees are still on them, but I've caught some of the queens. I've got them in a, in some split. I'm going to wait till in the morning to see if those haven't hashed out. I was going to put one in each of those splits. Does that sound all right to you?
Well, are you catching the queens that are virgin queens?
Yes, they are, but I'm on plastic, and I mean, there were 7 of them on one frame.
If you're experienced at picking queens up, then you probably could get by with it. But as a rule, most people that just get into doing stuff like that, unless you're awful careful or just kind of take your finger behind the queen and get her to walk up on your finger and put her in a cage, if you damage those wings or you squeeze it just a little bit, she won't fly out and mate. And if she does fly, she's probably not going to return.
Right.
And then another thing on that same thing there is people they don't have enough boxes, so they catch a lot of virgin queens. The queen needs to go out when she needs to go out. And if there's a day, 2 days goes by and she don't fly out and mate, then chances are she won't get a good mating.
Well, it's, I think it's cold everywhere right now. I don't think it's going to be real decent weather till on down the week.
Yes. Well, whenever you start doing queens this early, up till Easter, you run high risk of getting good queens or even getting cells that don't chill on you. And if you've got cells there and some of the queens have hatched and some of them don't, and they haven't hatched, you have to look at the cell really close. If the bees are not paying a lot of attention to it, they might just be walking over it. They're actually ignoring the cell because it got chilled or bumped.
Right. They seem like they're on them just as much as they were these that hatched. I had one that I thought had hatched, but I never found a queen in there, so I think it was one that, they cleaned it out, I guess.
If you're on plastic, my suggestion would don't try to make too thin of splits. Let them build that numbers up to maintain heating there. I'd rather have 1 or 2 out of that one frame there than try to get a dozen and then they get chilled or don't get out there and mate for you.
Right.
Once you've reached at least a week before Easter, once you get past Easter, you're a little bit better, safer, You don't have that predator problem until you get around June. Then you start getting your predator problem.
Right. As far as your mating nukes, got some of them built. I drilled the hole in to put a bottle on top, and I think I'm just going to make feeders. I guess I'll just seal that hole over. But whenever you, like these queens I've got, if I wanted to put them in there with some bees, what I do when she's mated and I take her out, because I can't swap these frames, I just shake the bees off the frames.
Why would you want to shake the bees off the frames? You just catch the queen, put her in a queen cage, and put her into a 5-frame box, and you start a box there, or you put them in an 8-frame box.
Okay, and then just put those bees back in another box, or put another queen cell in there?
Just put another queen cell in there.
Okay. I was curious about how you done that because you can't swap the frames around.
Oh yeah, you can swap. Usually what happens on mini nukes is they're either starving or they're honey bound or they're brood bound. So if you got one of those little mini nukes and you're running 4 frames in there, now some people run 5. If you got 4 frames in there, that's what we do for speed. You usually can take and pull the queen out of that. At that point, take 3 of the frames and put them into 3 different boxes, set 3 more up, put your queen cell in there with 1 frame. When the queen comes back, drop 2 frames in with queen cells.
Okay. Thank you.
Paul's trying to show us something, maybe.
Oh, I thought my computer went way wide.
No, it's not you. Paul's taking over here.
Oh. Scared me for a minute.
What are you trying to show us there, Paul?
Just some pictures of my equipment I built over the winter.
Oh.
I didn't want to overrun you.
All right, we got time for one more. Nick's got his hand up. Go ahead, Nick.
Hi, Don. Another question. What type of alcohol do you use for smashing up the queen?
I use rubbing alcohol. Just regular rubbing alcohol. And just get 1 ounce bottles and fill it about half full and put your queen in there. And the alcohol actually extracts out the pheromone. I leave mine whole until I sell them, but you can take and smash them up and use a Q-tip. That's what you want to do, just get the pheromones out.
And do you still leave the queen in there? Or do you take it out? You leave it in there?
No, if you smash her up, you got debris in there, queen debris. And all you're doing is just getting the alcohol with the pheromones on it, and then you just rub it on your mating box.
Okay. Okay, that's the last question. Thanks, Don.
Okay, all right.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Well, it's just after 9 o'clock, so I guess we'll call it a wrap. Don needs his beauty sleep so he can be up and tending bees first thing in the morning. How busy are you right now, Don? How busy are you?
I appreciate everybody coming in tonight.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you.